Good morning, everyone. My name is Ghazala Yasmin, and I'm here to give a presentation to the Board of Directors of Brookshire Industries. As we all know, that we are in a transition of a new CEO, and our new CEO, Miss May, she come up with a new vision for the company to enhance the performance of our organization. I'm also very glad that Miss May wants to introduce the servant leadership culture in Brookshire. And in the previous meeting, she provided us an article which I looked into detail for its deep analysis. And I will discuss my findings in next few slides, and then we'll provide a better article for all of your consideration to make a decision to adopt the servant leadership culture in Brookshire Industries. Of today's presentation is to introduce the new research study, then provide the comparison between original and alternative article. At the end, we'll provide the conclusion and some recommendations to the board of directors. The two articles that we are comparing is one that Ms. May provided us in the previous meeting, the Malker and Basco's article titled Achieving High Organization Performance Through Servant Leadership. And the new one is the Hashim Khan and Adnan's article. The title is The Servant Leadership and Enhancement of Organizational Performance. The question arises that if we already have one article, then why we are looking for more evidences. This actually highlighted the importance of evidence-based management approach, which states that the managers or the decision maker, they should make their decision which should be based on a combination of a critical thinking and best available evidences. So the managers, they not only um, believe on their professional expertise and judgment, but they also have to consider other factors involved in it, which is to gather more scientific literature from different databases and sources. They look for available evidences, which are also including the organization's own data records, and then critically evaluate the research, keeping in mind the stakeholder values and concern. Once they follow all these processes together, they will be more confident to make any decision for their organization. So for comparing the two articles, we are using the Holland and Rees framework. This is used for critiquing the quantitative research articles. This framework has some assessment tools, and we will assess those two articles based on them, which are mainly what is the focus of the research study, and also the background and the purpose of the study, including the literature review, what research methodology is used, the tools of data collection, how the data was analyzed and presented in the article, the sample collection, the ethical consideration during the research, findings and conclusion, the strengths and whether the author they presented their strength and limitation and their practical application of their research. So keeping in mind all these assessment tools and the framework of Holland and Dries, using this to compare two articles. Um, in Malker and Basco's article, the research focus and background, they did a massive literature review, which is very overwhelming for the reader and sometimes distract the reader, and their abstract is also not very clear. However, for Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, they did a very good literature review appropriate to their research study, and they clearly stated their abstract. Talking about the purpose of the study, the Malker and Basco's purpose of the study, they mention is to investigate whether a servant leader can develop a culture that develop more servant leaders, while for Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, um, And the purpose is to explore the association between servant leader behavior model with institution performance, workers' loyalty, and commitment. Um, the Malker and Basco's purpose is a conflict with the title of their study, as their purpose in the purpose they are talking about achieving um, high organization performance through servant leadership, which shows that it will be focused on organizations' high achievement as they adopt the servant leadership culture. But the purpose they mentioned is focusing more on how the servant leader can develop a culture that develop more servant leaders. So it's like a conflict with their titles, but we don't see anything like that or any conflict um, in Hashim Khan and Adnan's article. Talking about the methodology and the sampling, Malker and Basco's article, they used a mixed method approach. They conducted interviews and survey questionnaires. Also, in the methodology, they used the cross-sectional study, and one of the limitations of such study is that it cannot provide cause and effect relationship. It is also sometimes biased due to low response rate. So they fail to produce any cause and effect relationship in questionnaires of mid-level managers and the servant leader in interviews. Uh, Also, the sample seems biased as it is collected from three auto dealerships, which are already already having a high performance. They did not mention the total population, but they have 59 respondents. For Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, they used a very good sample from four different universities with a total population of 800 faculty members, and data was collected from 120. They use a simple random sampling techniques. For the data collection, they use the servant leader questionnaires by Barbato and Wheeler. The only difference is that Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, um, however, they used actually they actually showed the validity of the instrument is tested for reliability and is confirmed to be in an acceptable range. But there is no such no such range or reliability index was provided by Malker and Basco. Also, the Malker and Basco, they actually received a 27% feedback or from their questionnaires, um, response from their questionnaires, while Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, they received 79% response on their questionnaires. The Khan and Adnan, they use the servant leadership model for which really help the reader to better understand the concept or the relationship that they want to show between independent and dependent variables. In Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, the dependent and independent variables are defined very clearly. The dependent variables are organization performance, and the independent variables include the servant leadership, emotional healing, wisdom, and persuasive mapping. While Malker and Bascu, they did not provide um, any details or anything. They did not clearly define the variables for their. Talking about the hypothesis, the Malker and Basker's article, they have two hypotheses, while Hashim Khan and Adnan article, they have four hypotheses. But the important point is how they tested those hypotheses. In Malker and Bascu's article, the first hypothesis, which is mid-level manager who report to servant leader, will exhibit above average levels of several leaders' characteristics themselves. They only use the arithmetic mean um, for to test this hypothesis. They did not provide any further descriptive or inferential statistics to support how they tested this hypothesis. Same they did with the second hypothesis. They used ANOVA, but without providing any information that how they come up to choose ANOVA to test this hypothesis, and also they did not provide any information about the explanation of their second hypothesis results. However, Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, they actually uh, clearly, for the four hypotheses, they explain the relationships between dependent and independent variables very clearly. For example, for hypothesis one, to prove that there is a positive impact of servant leadership on a performance, they showed in a table two on page 170, the beta value was 0.71 with a t-value in an acceptable range. And they actually did the hypothesis 2, 3, and 4 in the same way with the explanation in the tables. The findings and the limitation. For the findings for both the article, the authors they found out that there is a positive impact of a servant leader on the organization performance, and they both also mentioned the limitation of their studies. They both mentioned that they need a larger sample to do more studies. But Hashim Khan and Adnan also mentioned to servant leadership behavior needs to be studied further. Talking about the philosophical perspective, Hashim Khan and Adnan's article, the author's epistemological, ontological, and axiological position can be generalized as positivism, objectivism, and value-free research, while Malker and Basco's article, the philosophical perspective is objective but have some missing data in it, and they also conducted a case study using interviews, which makes it really vague and unclear. At the conclusion, we are concluding that Hashim Khan and Adnan's article is much better, and we should consider it um, as a part of our decision making for adopting a servant leadership culture for Berkshire Industries, because um, it fall under the criteria of Holland and Rees framework. It clearly defined the purpose of the study, which leads to the clear findings, the clear research design and philosophical perspective. And they also have a clear stated hypothesis, and they have tested it very well. Um, However, as we discussed previously, Balker and Basco actually failed to explain um, the purpose, and their findings are also not consistent. They also did not provide much information of their how they tested the hypothesis, the variables for Hashim Khan and Adnan's articles are very well defined and clear. Their response rate that they receive is higher, which is 79%, as compared to Malker and Basco's 27%. For Hashim Khan and Adnan, the data collection, analysis, results, explanation, they are all consistent with the research purpose. Their findings are consistent with the research purpose, but all these aspects are missing in Malker and Basco's research article. So this article is better than Malker and Basco's research article, but it's not the only or not the perfect one. So I have a recommendation for the board of directors to gather more evidence from the practitioners, from the publications, and also gather more data from within the organization, keeping in mind the stakeholder values and concern. and then combine all these evidences together, which will give us a diverse assessment tool to make a wise decision. Um, we will be more confident to apply that decision for our organization, better performance. And the last but not least is that it's recommended to the board to share the experiences with from the organization who are already applying the servant leadership culture in their organization, so that we can also learn from their experiences. And with that, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck for the new um, CEO for adopting a new culture for Berkshire Industries. Some references here.